on live action on YouTube every single Tuesday. We go to the podcast recorded after that, but we are here to help you guys be better, to be more productive, to be more successful in your careers. So let's hit the intro and let's get right into it because we have an outstanding guest for you guys today. Let me know you guys can all hear me. Can everybody hear me? Kasim, can you hear me? All right, we're live action. Let's go, y'all. What I teach you guys is transformation. If you didn't dominate, changes need to be made. So I give you guys entire systems that make you new. But stop making excuses, stop whining, stop, right? Get at it. No excuses, just dominate. Oh, who is ready, guys? Who is ready? So this is week 4 of the Study Doc Show, guys. Bringing you high impact interviews with experts, with people with unique perspectives to help push you guys forward. And today we have a whopper, guys. Swedish memory champion, Idriz Zogaj. Okay, he has over 20 years of world-class experience in memory training and working with people personally to coach them to be better. He's a world champion in memory. He is the coach. Or he was the coach of the Swedish team. He's a 5-time Sweden's best memory. He's a TEDx speaker with over 9 million views. He's author of 4 books. He's creator of multiple platforms to help you guys train your brain. And he's here with us today, guys. Welcome, 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 Idriz Zogaj. Let's bring him in. See if this is going to work. Oh, we are there. Can everybody see Idriz? Can everybody say hi? Everybody say hello? We are live action right now. Not everyone will agree to be interviewed live, and he has agreed to be with us here live action. So everybody light up the comment box right now. Let him know you appreciate him being here. Idriz, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. So I kind of gave an intro, but would you reintroduce yourself to everybody? Let them know who you are and why they should be so excited to be in your presence, guys. A memory champion. If you guys don't know how difficult that is, it's crazy. But let's tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am Idriz Zogaj, and I live in Sweden. So it's actually in the middle of the night here, but I'm so excited to be on your show, so I stayed up. I'm a memory expert or a memory coach. I'm passionate about learning and how to use your memory to improve and succeed in your everyday life.
Nice. All right, guys. So you work with people to improve their memory. You yourself are a memory champion. How does that even
Yes.
start? I couldn't even, like in my mind, like I love to learn, I love to study, all these kind of things. But I'm thinking like memory and championships, like I know they have those things, but how do you even start going down that track? So how did you become the memory champion? You had a photographic memory from birth, right?
No, I mean, photographic memory is a myth. So
Exactly. Yes.
yeah, it kind of exists, but it's mostly a myth because memory I mean, the photographic part is not how it works. It's just
Hmm.
something that has clinged on that people think that because you can repaint something or do something. It's not perfect, but it looks really accurate. And then people have thought that yeah, that guy has to have photographic memory because he can recall all of that information. But memory championship is actually a very good way of starting to train your memory. You don't have to go to the championship, but you can set up the goals to train for those because it is like going to the gym. You do lots of exercises with your brain, and after a while, you just realize, whoa, I'm getting so much better. And you can set up easy goals. I mean, it's harder when you study because you have to know everything and you have the stress of the knowledge, etc. But when you train in sort of for a competition or just for fun, you can see the improvements and you can build up a confidence that you actually can learn. You can actually can keep things into memory and how it works in detail. And then you can use those and go in with a safer sort of when you go into studies, you feel that you can do it.
So when you started your memory journey and training your brain, was it always with the intention of being a memory champion, or how did you stumble kind of into the space of training your brain? Where did that journey start for you? When did you first realize you could do that?
After I finished my university studies, or at the end of my university studies, I wanted to continue to train my brain. And one way of doing that, I thought, was learning a new language. So I set up to find a language that I found very new and interesting. I wanted it to be very different, etc. And I stumbled on a book on memory training. It was written by Dominic O'Brien, and he had a chapter on, since he was a world champion, he had a chapter on how to train for championships. And since I didn't know which language I wanted to hit, I started to train for these competitions, sort of. So like the exercise he gave, numbers, cards, etc., words. So I started to test myself and train for those. I was thinking this must be good while I figure out which language I want to learn. But then by accident, I actually started to like it, and I realized that I mean, these some of these levels I could reach, and hey, maybe I should try go to the World Championships and try out my skills. So I sort of stumbled on it, and later I realized that the language I did learn was the language of memory, because learning to train your brain the way we do is very, very similar to learning a new language, with the benefit of us that you can learn any language you want much faster.
Right. And I like what you said there to start that whole story off. If you guys heard that, he finished university and was like, you know what? I want to learn more. Learning doesn't stop at any level, guys. The people who are
Exactly.
the highly successful people, the people who have these amazing brains, it's because they said to themselves, learning never stops. Learning is not just in the four walls of the classroom. I'm going to push myself to learn new things. And you mentioned, right, stumbling through it and finding your way here, but then setting that goal and then working towards that and realizing, wait a minute, as I read these chapters, I've kind of got some of these levels. I can kind of do this kind of thing. So for a lot of people, they run around all the time saying, I've got a terrible memory. I've got a bad memory. I can't memorize anything. Not and
Yeah.
thinking it's permanent. Thinking like, oh, I have a bad memory, I have a bad brain. What would you say to those people who think that their brain is fixed, that they can't, right? They believe in the photographic memory that we know is
Yeah.
this myth. What would you say to those students?
Exactly. Well, I would say, I mean, listen to this. A memory athlete can forget as well. There is like you can forget because you are thoughtful or you run away of your thoughts, but that doesn't mean you have a bad memory, what people think. Because if you can think afterwards, yeah, I realized that that was the answer to that question, then you don't have a bad memory. You had it in your memory. It was only the techniques that when you put it there that didn't allow you to find it when you wanted to find it. So having a bad memory, I mean, because of age, for example, you can have aging diseases, and you don't even remember that you were going to remember something. That's when it's bad for real,
You
and that's when you
forget to,
have a bad
you
memory.
don't even remember to remember.
But
I like that.
exactly, but when you are a normal functioning brain and throughout most of your life, I mean, unless when you get like 90 or 100 years of age, you have a working memory that is good, and no one has a bad memory. Everyone has a good memory. They just need to know how it works and utilize it.
So I want to piggyback off something you said there, and I want you to expand on it because you said memory champions can forget, and you said
Yeah,
it's a matter of thoughtful, right? Of being thoughtful or being thoughtless. And for our
exactly.
students, they might have missed that subtlety. So explain what you mean by being thoughtful and being thoughtless.
Yeah, let's say you want to you're gonna go grocery shopping when you come home from school or work or whatever, and you memorize your 20 things that you're gonna do. But at the end of the day, you realize, oh, I'm stressed. I need to go home. And then you run home, and when you come home, you realize, oh no, I didn't buy all those stuffs. So did you forget, or did you do a routine that didn't work? In this case, it was a routine. You need good routines as well in general in life. So you didn't forget, but you sort of still forgot what you're going to do because you run away from your thoughts. Or you memorize what you're going to bring with you to school, but then you wake up in the morning and, oh, I have to run. And then you realize when you sit there on the school bench and you, oh no, I forgot these things I was going to bring with me. But you remember exactly everything you were going to bring with you. So it doesn't mean that you forgot or that you had a bad memory. It just meant that you didn't have the routine to do it. And this can happen to memory athletes as well. We
Yeah.
run away from our own thoughts and we just realize, ooh,
Yeah, and it's something we I had study coaching. I have with my study group for my study course. We had coaching. Was it 2 nights ago, guys? Last night, made last night, and the theme of our session was focus. And I was telling the students how for so many of you guys, because we were talking about how someone went to a test and they got to the test, like, man, I knew everything, and then I just forgot it all. And we were talking about the massive impact of our inability to focus in, and that you talk about running from your memory, running from those thoughts, and that a
Yeah,
lot of you guys are indirectly running from your thoughts because you live these cluttered, crazy, obligated lives where you have so much running around, you don't allow yourself to get the routines, to stay on task, to be focused. You're all over the place. And
yeah,
like any athlete, right? You want to cross train a little bit, but you got to focus in and do it piece by piece. And so with you guys in your brains, recognize that if you are very forgetful, if you are struggling to memorize things, it may come down to a fact of being too scattered and not having the routines and not being focused in on what you want to learn, whether it's for your school or for basic things.
exactly. And another easy thing you can do, let's say you put your mobile phone somewhere, or your keys, which happens every now and then. You can do two things. One is you can be stressed about it, and then your stress levels go up, and you find it even harder to find it. The other thing you can do is you can actually walk around and think, what did I do today? Yeah, I was in the kitchen. I went there. I went, oh yeah, I went to take a glass of water, and then I put the phone on the side. So you can actually find most things in your memory, inside your brain. And this is another way of proving to yourself that you don't have a bad memory. You just actually you remember so much more things that you don't even register or even think about, but they stay there, or they are there. And when you walk around and think, then you can see, ah, yeah, I put it over there. I did this, and you can find, your keys, your key cards, or etc.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you talk about is we have it in our brains a lot of times, but we
Yeah,
aren't able to pull it out. And as you
exactly.
mentioned, you call yourself a memory athlete, and I love that because it really puts it into perspective, guys, that your brain is that muscle. And people who have super brains recognize that it was a muscle, exercised it, and became suprema professional brain athletes, professional memory athletes to use it. And so for you, one of
Exactly.
those things we talk about is recalling things. And so getting that training in, how do we train ourselves to be more focused in, to be able to recall, like, oh, it's right on the tip? How do we go about that process of training
Yeah.
our brain?
Well, what most memory athletes do is use what we already know. One thing that the brain has easy to do is to put a lot of visual things into memory. Like you can walk around in your house, you can walk around mentally to school, to work, to whatever. And so you have a lot of visual memories that you just have there. And what memory athletes do is that they put information on these places. So it becomes like a memory journey. You walk around in your brain and you say, yeah, on my way to school, I have these things. On my way in the classroom, I put these things, and so on. And then you know where to find information. You have information put into different rooms. That's one way, one technique. It's the most powerful technique of them all. It's called the memory palace technique or the memory journey. It has a few different names, but in general, it utilizes hippocampus that makes us remember the visual parts. I mean, everyone has to remember how to get home. I mean, that's from our ancestors, from our pre-humans. We have to remember how to find our way back. That's very important, and our brain has that ability. And that's a very strong thing to use.
Yeah. So oh, go ahead. Sorry. Keep
Yeah,
going.
and another thing is that the brain loves emotions. So if you can put emotions to something you want to remember, especially positive emotions, it makes it more memorable and stronger. If you can make it fun, different, imaginative, exaggerated, etc. One thing to remember is that the brain doesn't have any limits. I mean, we are here now. We are on the moon. The next split second, we are on in Australia. We are, etc. So we can, within our brain, we can jump around. We can imagine. We can exaggerate, and all these things you use. And this activates the amygdala, which is a sort of a boost into your brain to put things even further and even stronger into your memory.
Okay. And I want to unpack some of these things. So, for our students who are new to memory techniques, there's a lot of words he used there that I want to make sure that we're taking time to break down. And so, we mentioned this memory palace, right? People talk about this memory palace all the time. And for a lot of students, they hear memory palace. And you guys know, I hate love social media. I hate social media because It's very superficial in that you have 10 seconds to tell someone something that is a topic you could talk about for hours. And so here we have hours. And so when we talk about this memory palace, people hear this and they think, okay, a memory palace, so I need to walk, like pretend like I'm walking around my living room and I should put this molecule there and this, that. It's more sophisticated than that, right? So when we
Yeah.
talk about these memory palaces and we talk about these frameworks for memories, what are some keys you think to starting for a student who's never done a memory palace? Can you explain how they can get started with understanding how to create these really rich context environments, these really graphic environments that they can use to memorize things?
Yeah, the easiest way to start is to use your own home. So you can walk around in your own home, go from room to room, and the important thing is that you walk around like clockwise or counterclockwise. You choose a direction so that you know that everything comes in this order. And why you need the order? Well, it's easier when you're going to recall it because then you can visually walk around and find the pieces. And then you can train with a shopping list, or if you have 20 or 30 words, like you say molecules, you have a set of molecules, etc. And then you can put those words in different places. So let's say in your living room, you see this dog molecule, and you know, yeah, that's that molecule, and you go to the next place, and you have the methane, or you have a carbon, or whatever. So you put the images, and you find an image you that pops up in your brain, or even if you have to make up an image, that works as well, and you link it to the place. You have the door when you go in, and then you have the maybe where you take off your shoes, put up your jacket, etc., etc., and you walk around. You can use the whole room. You can use parts of the room. This is the part where you need to experiment a little bit, what works best for you. And then you can fill that room. And when you do, for example, recall, if you close your eyes and walk around, you are doing a type of recall that is much, much better than if you scan through the information again, because you are actually pulling out the information from your brain, proving that you have it inside, which is the most important part of learning. You can actually extract all the information. If there would be a puzzle or a part that you don't recall, then that is what you focus on. I mean, we always hear about athletes that they should focus on the weak parts. When it comes to learning, the things that you didn't recall, that's the parts you focus on.
Right.
It could be that the image was too weak, you didn't put enough emotions to it, or you just need to repeat it a couple of times. And then at the end of the day, when you can recall the whole session, the whole 20, 30 molecules or whatever you put into memory, that's when you have it.
Nice. And so it's repetition of this memory palace. It's the
Yeah.
organization. I like that part of it because a lot of people like picture a room of random things. And it's so important when you guys are creating these memory tracks, right? These memory stories, that you guys have a clear organization to it. So whether it's clockwise around your house, whether it's from front door to back door, whatever the organization is, our brain thrives off of organization. And people who struggle with memory, it's because they struggle to organize the information externally and they struggle to organize the information internally with what is meaningful to them. And so with memory palaces, what we're hoping to do is take our own natural internal structures of knowing our house and link it to something that's more abstract and create that organizational structure. So it's very important, even though we know our house, how do we know our house? How do we visualize it? Because we're going to move through and link those items. So I think that was very important that you pointed that out about the organization aspect of that. The other thing that you
Exactly.
kind of hit, oh, go ahead.
No, no, continue, please.
I was going to say the other part of that he mentioned, guys, listen, this is important stuff. Details here. We are here. This is Idriz Zogaj. This is a Swedish memory champion we have for you guys today. If you guys are enjoying this, I see the comment box is flush with people saying they appreciate this, but take a second, comment, like this video. He's taking his time out. It's the middle of the night right now in Sweden, and he's here
Yeah,
with
exactly.
us, giving you guys this information. He should be sleeping in his bed right now, but he's here with us, bringing great stuff for you guys. So he mentioned the emotional aspect of it. And you mentioned heightening that emotion. How can students increase the emotion of their memory strategies, of their palaces, their storylines, their images that they're creating in their head? How can they increase the emotion aspect of it?
An easy way is to make a fun story of what you're going to learn. If you can do that, if you can come up with a fun story, if you sit there and you laugh, then you know that you're doing the right thing. When I teach kids, for example, 3, 4 years old, I use games to do that. I've created some games, physical games that we use. And when I see them laughing, I know that they're doing the right thing. I know it will work. I always very often see the parents, oh no, no, this is too much information. But when I know that they're having fun and I know the amount of information their brain can handle it, then it works and I know that they're doing the right thing. So making a fun story and having fun when you learn. If you study with a study buddy, then you can help each other to find fun images. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And tell each other. Because it can be hard to make a fun story or something, or how do I do that? And if you have someone you study with, then you can help each other. And with practice, this will become easier and easier. Very often people tell me, "Oh, Idris, how did you come up with that? Oh, that's a really funny thing." Oh, but it comes from experience. I know that was what the brain wants, and I've done it so many times myself that it comes naturally. So in the beginning, it can feel hard or even cramped, but with practice, it will become easier, and you will get better and better at it.
Yeah, I'm going to correct you. In the beginning, it will be hard. And it might
Yeah,
not be. No, it will be hard. It will be difficult. And this is, again, a pet peeve of mine is that people will hear a strategy. So we're talking about memory palaces right now. You guys are going to hear this. You're
yeah,
going to be so excited about this. You're going to go try it tonight. And you're going to suck at it. You're going to be terrible, awful, no good. And you're going to say, those guys were full of it. They told me this works. And I'm awful. This is hard. And you're going to throw it away. And so often with students, when it comes to memory, as he said, it's that practice, where then you can't get it wrong, right? As you guys have heard me say, amateurs, right? They practice until they get it right, right? Professionals
yeah,
practice until they can't get it wrong. And with memory and with studying and with learning, it's the same premise. It takes practice. It takes repetitions. And something you brought up, which I think is important for students to understand, is we don't have all the answers inside of ourselves when we're unskilled, when we're just starting out. So having that partner there to bounce things off of is very important because you guys will amplify your perspectives and it creates a healthy dialogue that elevates you faster. So don't think you have to do it alone. Have someone come along that journey with you as you guys work to build your memory, as you guys work to study. It's important to have those people that you can externally validate and externally elevate yourself faster with.
exactly. And when you do recall, for example, if you are two people and you do recall together, if you pull it out of your brain, it's called retrieval practice. It's proven in science that that is the best way of consolidating your memory. So when you do the recall, when you walk around in your memory palace and you see the images and you give the answers, it's very important that you do it without the paper up. You just turn it around and see how much you can recall. And you will get surprised how many times you get all of it correct.
Right. And I also want you guys to look at how much Idris closes his eyes as he does this. That's how much of a habit this is for him.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
closing your eyes, and you guys have heard me talk about this. When I study, it's like I have my own study group. My eyes are closed. I'm thinking about things. I'm physically walking around. I'm inside of what I'm studying. I'm inside of what I'm trying to learn. It has to be that visceral for you. You have to bring your whole brain into focus on that subject. So closing your eyes, it's important. Even though I know you're trying to read or whatever, take a second. And challenge yourself, especially in that active recall mode. So a lot of people
Exactly.
confuse, they think looking at things, that's not recall. We have to force our brain to pull it out unprompted. It's that stretching, that
Exactly.
stressing of the brain that makes things sticky. That also at the same time stretches our brain and trains our brain. And I want to talk about that for a second because we live in this society where everything is on our phones or at our disposal. And when it comes to building your memory, right, it is that habit of building that memory. It is that training process. And so for me, I like to look for training opportunities for my brain.
Yeah.
For you, how do you incorporate building your memory, building your brain into your everyday?
Well, I have a tool that I use a lot for my exercise. It's actually a deck of cards. Uh, and why do I use deck of cards? Well, I can memorize it as a deck. I can memorize the numbers. I can do a lot of things with it. So it's like my rubber band. You do a lot of exercises with it. Another thing is if you memorize numbers, for example, if you know how to do that. You can recall phone numbers. If you're going to call a friend, you write the numbers on the phone, and if you're right, you get the name. So, I mean, you do it with a recall. If you're going to go shopping, etc., you put the list into your memory. You can keep the shopping list with you, but put it in your back pocket and do the shopping without the list. And if you feel you didn't get everything, you can check. So those are like everyday practices one can do. I would say that's equivalent of taking not taking the elevator, but walking the steps, the stairs, to get an everyday exercise. Or if you can, take the bike or walk a couple of blocks to work, etc., which is something that is very good for the body. And you can do equal things for the brain.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's easy practice tips that one can use in an everyday life.
Yeah. And did you guys see how off the top of his head, he's came like this, pulled out the pack of cards? People who are proficient, who have excellent brains, you will find are actively, constantly stressing that brain. So he may not ever leave home without that deck of cards. He's talking about, oh, if I have my phone, instead of just pulling up a person's contact, let me go ahead and try to enter it in and see if their name pops up, right? All these ways to stress yourself. I want to expand on this and talk about for you guys, maybe it's not a memory issue. For you guys as students who struggles with math, right? It's the same principles you can use. And so for me, for math, one way that I actively create practice every single day to work on my math, to stay strong with my mental math, is I use a clock. So as you mentioned with the deck of cards, right, you could do the suits, you could do the order, you could do out of order, you could do the numbers and so forth. With a clock, it's the same premise. I can use the big hand, right, the little hand. So if it's 530, I could say 30 divided by 5 times 30, right, 30 plus 5 minus 5. I can then take, right, the big hand and make it a small hand, so it's 25 and 30. So now 25 times 30, 35, 30 divided by 20, and so forth. So there's a lot of ways that you guys, whatever subject area you're in, not just memory, you guys can stretch your brain, train that brain in a lot of different dimensions, but you have to be thinking actively of like, this has to be something that I'm doing all the time. This has to be something that I'm passionate about and that I'm focused on, because a lot of times we spend a lot of time learning subjects, but we're not bettering ourselves, right? We have to think about these things and how we're bettering ourselves for the long term of our lives.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, and so one thing that I try to talk to students about is that there's a big difference between seeing and then actually perceiving things. And so it kind of goes back to what we're talking about, thoughtful and thoughtless, in that when we're trying to memorize things, right, whether it's someone's name or so forth, there's a lot of things. Our brain is constantly being hit with things. And so our eyes and our ears are trained to filter a lot of it out. And so one of the things that happens if we want to increase our memory and say, oh, I want to remember things, is we have to be open and aware and be actively searching for these things. And so can you talk about kind of how our brain is really great at filtering things out? How can we get it to really open itself up and to focus on these things so we can memorize them?
Well, for example, when you hear someone's name, it's very important that you listen and that you repeat the name. So, and if you don't get the name the first time, you can ask. Dr. You can ask. So, oh, sorry, how do I pronounce your name? The first time you learn a name is the first time you have the opportunity to actually ask. And one thing that I like about the American culture, that you guys are very good at names, because you see that culturally important to know someone's name. In Sweden, it's the opposite. I don't know why. People
Oh,
don't care that much about the names. And then they just, I don't know, they can walk around and just don't know what people's name are. But they ask me the same thing, and I tell them that, well, you have to listen actively, because you have a split second to put it into your memory. And that split second, you have to listen and you have to focus, find the image if you can, and repeat it. It's nice to meet you, Idris. And then when you scan and you see people in the room, for example, you can repeat those names, because repetition is very important. But to catch things on the fly, it's quite hard, but it requires that you stop and focus on that thing. If you're gonna remember where you walk, for example, and you see it, there's a barber shop over there, then you stop and look at it and focus on it for a couple of seconds. And you go to the next place and you stop and focus. So it's the active looking, the active focus on something that will substantially increase your potential to recall it later on. So when you walk back, yeah, it was that barbershop. I'm going to left here, etc. or yeah, that was the name, etc. So it's the focus, which is, I would say, was the most important part.
How about for lecture, guys? How many of you guys in lecture are not focused in? How many of you guys have your phone out? How many of you guys are talking to
Yeah,
your friend? How many of you guys are thinking about where you gotta be and you're not actually focused in on lecture? And you wonder
yeah,
why you don't remember what the professor said, right? So it's very important that we focus in. We're using our eyeballs. We're listening, yes, but our attention has to be there, guys. We're a
yeah.
distracted society. We got to focus in on what's in front of us if we want to have that memorized. And go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that when it comes to lectures, if you train your brain generally, like we memory athletes do, you will increase your focus. But one very important thing when you sit in a lecture to stay focused is that it's important maybe to not write everything down word by word, because then you will be very focused on writing. It's better if you listen and gather a couple of sentences or even a context, and then try to find a keyword for that part, and then write down that keyword. Or even better, if you can draw an image that explains that or reflects that, because images are easier to remember. I mean, good memory techniques comes always down to images. So if you can write a few keywords, write down some images, when you look at those, you will get a lot of information back, because the details, the word by word saying from the professor is not the important part. The important part is the context, and that you can recall it with your own words. So listen to what the professor says, what the teacher says, and select keywords to write down rather than writing down everything.
Yeah, and I'll add to that two things quickly for lecture. One of the ways that we can allow ourselves and facilitate, right? Because with everything, it's all about setting yourself up for these things. And so for lecture, if we're saying it's very important that we're not so focused on writing everything down, but instead we're taking it and making it meaningful to us, one of the ways that we can do this and facilitate that is by pre-reading. So now if we've
Yeah,
prepared ourselves before lecture and we come with some notes, or we come at least with an idea of what we're getting, it allows us to not be like scrambling over all these things and have a better ability to, again, to organize ourselves and orient ourselves to what is happening in front of us, and then we can bring it in and organize it. Then again, as we hear it, oh, go ahead. Yeah, we
yeah,
want to hear
no,
from you, not
that's a
me.
very
We don't want
very
to hear
good
from me. We
point,
want to hear
because
from you.
if you pre-read it, it's a very good point. But what happens then is that when you hear it from the lecture, your brain, even if you are almost asleep, your brain will, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I recall that. It's like you hear someone says, yeah, my name is Otto, and then, oh, I know someone that has that name, and you will immediately focus. And that will happen if you pre-read. So it's a very good
Yeah.
suggestion.
No, 100%. The other thing that's important as we talk about these lectures, right? So we go in, we have this pre-reading, but as you guys are doing these lectures, if you guys heard what he said, don't write down every word. We have to make it our own, including possibly a picture, but we have to make it our own. And so, as you guys know, I always say, right, we're listening, and then we have to ruminate before we're allowed to record. We have to ruminate, we have to churn it, we have to think about it, and we have to make it visual, make it visceral, make it something that's meaningful to us, because what someone else says and they think has meaning is not necessarily meaningful for us. We want to take the abstract and make it very concrete for ourselves. And so it's a matter of creating that your own, and I call it this unique perspective of the material. And so when we talk about like increasing the emotion of it, increasing the graphic nature of it, it has to be that unique perspective. Well, how do I see this? What is already in my brain? Do I already know an auto? How can I link these topics? So taking the unfamiliar and making it familiar with yourself.
Exactly.
Yes, yes, everybody. Are we having a good time? Who's here? Who's here right now? Who's enjoying this? We are live action, guys, right now. Idriz Zogaj is here with us, Swedish memory champion, giving you guys outstanding strategies for improving your memory and training your brain. Who's excited? Comment in the box right now. If you guys have any questions, things you want to specifically know about memory, this is the time to ask. That's why we are here live, right? Isabella, what up? Right? We are here live action. Can you talk, Idris, about, because when we talk about memorization, I sometimes am hesitant to teach students memorization strategies in terms of just the kind of core tactical, right? Like memory tactics, because what happens is that people, they confuse memory with memorizing and brute forcing things. And so I think it's very important. Like, what I mean by that to say is that I don't emphasize memorization and techniques, because what happens is the techniques sometimes can be challenging. And so then what people divert to is, okay, memorization is important. I'm just going to go over this list 1,000 times. And they forget the strategies, but they focus on memorizing. And so I would love it if you could talk to people about, like, even when you're memorizing a deck of cards, it's not just the cards, right? We're creating these links. So, for example, memorizing a deck of cards. How do you go about memorizing that deck of cards? How do you go about memorizing any long string of things? How do we make it so it's not just a list of things? How do we create this meaning for ourselves?
Well, often when you study, you encounter abstract information. It could be words, it could be something in Latin or whatever. When you see it the first time, it looks abstract. And what is abstract is harder for the brain to catch, to put into memory, because it will sort of just fall out. Looking at the deck of cards, you see the same thing. You see a lot of, suits, etc. And what am I going to do for spades of six? What am I going to do for this and this? So what we do, what memory athletes do, is that we find an image for each card. And why do we do that? Well, it's basically the same like learning the alphabet. So we learn these, but these images are stronger because we have feelings to it, emotions. We see them moving, etc. So the brain automatically gets more active. And then most of us link them together, like two or three. So we create a story with 2, 3 images. It's the same thing if you study. Don't take just one word. Maybe you link a couple of words together or a couple of images together, so you get more information at that spot. And then we put it in the memory palace to know the order of it. Let's say the first 3 cards at one place, next 3 cards at the next place, etc. But the first part, to making the abstract more concrete, is the key function, and linking the information together. And this is what you do with finding images, making a fun story, etc. One thing that you will find when you start using these strategies, for example, in your studies, is that you will reuse images. You will get sort of peg words, peg images. Mm-hmm. You see something in Latin that has a pre-part, a sub-part, etc. And you can find images that you reuse. So with time, it will become easier and easier. And visualizing it and making it fun will boost that part. So if you learn a deck of cards, for example, it's a very good training to prove to yourself that you can put 52 images into memory. That feels impossible, but with the strategies, you will see that this is like running like 1,000 meters. It's not the most difficult task. And if you can do that, then of course you can learn 50 words, 100 words from your studies without a problem.
Right. And as you guys heard that, right? So memorizing large things. One of the things I like to do when I'm out doing events is to memorize everybody's name in the room. And people are like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And I'm like, it's actually pretty simple if you have strategies and tools for doing it. And much like with a deck of cards, right? For some of you guys, that seems impossible. You're like, oh my gosh, I could never memorize a deck of cards. But the important thing is having strategies, right? And he was, as a true memory champion, he mentioned a lot there. You guys might have missed. There was like 3 or 4 different techniques he was talking about just in that segment, right? Of tagging these chunks together, of pegging them and having peg words and images and multiple things. But this is the importance of developing expertise and proficiency, is that what you guys will see is that it's not, if we're trying to be great in school or we're trying to have a great memory, it's not one thing. It's learning a multitude of things and having what I call this toolbox of these strategies that we can piece together that takes you, because each individually technique might put you at a certain level. But when you can stack those techniques together, man, the sky becomes the limit. And so it's simple things that we put together to make complex, right, and really advanced mechanisms to get things done. And so I think that's really, really important. And one thing that you touched on that I want to really drive home to people is, if you guys know me, you know I'm anti-Anki, right? Everybody knows Anki, the flashcarding system. I'm anti-Anki. And the reason I'm anti-Anki is because I know you guys, and you guys are lazy. And what you're going to do is take the Anki deck as someone else wrote it, and you're going to take their notes, and you're going to try to brute force memorize their flashcards. The important part about flashcards The important part of any note is we have to make it meaningful for us. We have to take what is abstract, and other people's language is abstract to us. We have to make it our own, guys. So when you guys are making flashcards, when you guys are taking notes, it's so important and imperative to make it meaningful to you. Make it your own and not someone else's. And for you guys who are struggling with learning things, it might be because you're doing that, because you're looking at the PowerPoint slides over and over again, someone else's words, because you're going to lecture and you're listening to what they're saying, trying to get everything down, instead of saying, well, wait a minute, filter. What does this mean to me? How can I make this mine as opposed to being someone else's? It's so, so important, guys, to take what is someone else's and make it our own if it's going to be something meaningful to us.
Exactly. And
I,
as you mentioned with the names, for example, let's say you have someone named Oliver and you see an image for that, probably an Oliver will show up. If you show someone else, like Pinsetta, your name is in Swedish like a Pinsett, so I get
yeah,
an image for that and so on. And those images will pop up again. So when you use the techniques, you will see that you will get this toolbox of images, of feelings, etc., that you can utilize and that will boost your memory.
exactly. We have some questions here from students I want to get to. Thank you guys for asking questions. You guys have questions. This is your time. You've got an expert here. Siva, let me pull your question up here. Siva says, how can we integrate concept maps into memory? And so
Concept.
to recap everybody out, concept maps, right, are these maps of concepts for a course. And it can be key terms. It can be concepts. It can be chapters. It can be whatever you want it to be. But it's linking together a variety of things into a concept map.
Yeah.
So the question is, how can we create a concept map and make it and memorize it better?
Yeah, well, what I use a lot is mind maps. I don't know if you probably know
No?
about
Yep.
this. And mind maps, I like them because they uh, use keywords and images, etc. And they have a structure. They have a center and they have something growing out, etc. And then you can write down concepts. And if you sit in a lecture, for example, and you do a mind map, you will realize when you get good at it, when you get a flow to it, you will realize that you get around 30 to 50 words or images that stay down there. And those then you can memorize using a memory palace and that will make it easier for you to see the concept. You will see the links and you'll see what belongs together, etc. So I would do that kind of structure. I would probably write it down in the mind map to see where I have everything, and then I would memorize it, and then I would recall it from memory to see that I have everything.
Yeah. And again, it's going back to organization. So for
Yeah,
my students, right,
exactly.
we talk about, we have chapter catalogs, right? We have our radical reading routine. We have to organize ourselves. And with mind maps, concept maps, any sort of map, the function of it is that it allows you to see a lot of things, how they connect all in one space. And so it's a very powerful tool if you're able to create these linkages, and then you're able to make the key word or the diagram that's in that place, again, powerful, emotional, visceral for you, and not just like molecule number 573. Like, we can't do that. We have to make it our own if we're going to really have a
Exactly.
concept at it. But organizing yourself, guys, it keeps coming up and up again and again. It's organization.
Another thing one can do is you can use, let's say you're learning a language, let's say you're learning German, and you have these different verbs, you have these different subjects, etc. You can put one type of words in one memory palace, another type of words in another memory palace, another type of words in a third. Or you can do this with your studies in medicine. You can put I put my hormones in that. I put my knowledge of the brain in that palace, etc. And then you also have a sort of an organization of where we have different knowledges. And then you will see and can recall stuff there, and then you will realize, oh, there, this is linked to that, this is linked to that, because you have all of it in your memory.
Exactly. And everyone sees Kasim in the box talking about tearing off high yield to low yield. And so we talk about concept stacking. And so it's the same principle in the sense that if we want to create a framework for the overarching concepts. And then, right, so say we have hormones over here and this over here and this over here, and then we can go into each of those buckets and pull out what we need out of each of those buckets. And so it's, again, it's organization, but a lot of times, and I think if you guys listen to what he said, it's good, because a lot of you guys think you're learning linearly. So it's this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, and all of a sudden at the end of the term you have a million topics. That's really hard to memorize. But if you can organize those topics and shrink them into bundles, into groups, if you can chunk them, put them in groups, it makes it easier, because now I just have this one big bucket. And so I can start with memorizing the big buckets. Okay, I got these big buckets. Now, let me see how these big buckets relate to each other, and then I can work about memorizing inside the buckets. And so we have to have these structures, and I love harping on structure, because there's so many unstructured students. We want to be structured learners, structured memorizers. Structure is everything, guys. So hear what he said right there. It's important. Tearing off.
Exactly.
We have another question here. Could you give an example of concept map for courses like OChem or psychology? So one way for utilizing concept maps, for example, for OChem or a psychology class. So a lot of people like to make OChem, it's like this big beast of a class, and everybody's like, oh, OChem is so difficult, so hard, oh my gosh, so much stuff. But the reality is that people overcomplicate OChem, and that they make it as abstract as possible, as difficult as possible, with a bunch of little tiny details. And what you really want to think about is a top-down approach to difficult classes like OChem or psychology, again, creating these buckets of information. And in OChem, you can break the entire course down. There's lots of stuff. But you can break the entire course down by types of reactions. And even though there's lots of types of reactions, there are really just about 6 or 7-ish. And again, it's a long time since I think in OChem, but there's like 6 or 7 base reactions that can occur. And then once we have those base reactions, we understand what the mechanisms are and what drives those reactions and how they interact. Now we can say, okay, now of these type, like these redox reactions, what are the different types of redox? Okay, and then we have all these different types of redox. Now, what are examples of each one of these? Okay, boom, boom, right? And why does this work this way? Okay, and how is this different? And then we can start to get really complex with it, but we've got to organize ourselves at the highest of level of saying, okay, wait, what are the big boxes first? So we have to orient ourselves. We have to be able to see it big. Otherwise, you'll get lost in the muck easily. So, Gabe, does that make sense? So if you had a concept map of that, you would have those big topics up there.
I mean, you mentioned pre-reading before. So if you find a topic that, chemistry is going to be very hard, then you can pre-read, and you will see that terms are reused. You will see that reactions reoccur. And then you can start to okay, how can I find an image for this, for that, without memorizing, just looking through it. And then when you go down to breaking it down, to starting memorizing, you will see the concept, you will see the connections, and you can group the information. And it will become easier, and you will have this bucket, as you mentioned, which is a very good approach to it.
Nice. Thank you for that. Guys, who's having fun? Like the video right now. We're here live action. Idriz Zogaj is here, bringing you guys excellent, giving his time in the middle of the night to be here with you guys. So everyone say thank you so much. We have some more questions here in the box that we'll ask. How can one decide what to memorize? Because it seems more efficient to try and memorize what you have difficulty with, not mass memorizing information.
Well, I mean, what you choose, you can memorize everything. That's how it is. Some things you will find harder, some things you will find easier. Typically, if it's long words or like a chemical reaction that's longer, etc., it will take more time because you might need to divide it into chunks, get several images, create the story around it. It could take a little bit longer time. But what you choose to remember, I mean, I would say it's up to you. It's what you need. But there is nothing that you cannot put into memory. Sometimes you have to repeat it a couple of times to get the image. But remember, when you do repetitions, that it's not like you need to repeat it 100 times over and over again, like just speeding. Learn it, repeat it, wait for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, repeat it again, try to recall it, wait for an hour, try to recall it again. When you're working in sections and in repetitions that are spaced, will make it better for you, because you will see then that you can recall the information even after some time. which means that you have the connections inside your brain. And sometimes, as I said, it could be longer parts, so you will need to recall a little bit more, but that's just good training. And again, you do it from your memory. You try to recall, like a retrieval practice.
And with that, guys, we can build that recall into our day. So for me, when I was in medical
Yeah.
school, I used to live on campus at Stanford, and so they had this huge shuttle service. And so what I would do is I would do my studying, or whatever, and then I would put on my headphones. I'd walk to the shuttle station, and I would wait to listen to my music, kind of veg out and relax, right? Let my brain kind of relax. And then when I got on the shuttle, it was my opportunity to have all my stuff put in my backpack, so I don't have any of it out, and I would just sit there, eyes closed. Probably weird on the bus, but it was okay. Sit there, with my eyes closed, and I'd be like, okay, wait. It was that first, okay, and then this was over here, and then oh yeah, it's a funny elephant dancing upside down, and then and I would run it through that active recall on the bus as I went through, right? Then I go to class and learn whatever, and then again on the way back, it would try something different, or if I'm cooking or whatever, you can build these moments of recall in, and I think it's an important thing. People we think, oh, we have to have our notes with us. You don't necessarily need your notes because you want to recall what you can, and what you can, it's okay. We can always check it later, but we're forcing our brain to say, okay, what can I memorize? What can I pull out to have to do that? In terms of deciding what to memorize for classes, as Idris said, you can memorize anything if you get enough repetitions in. The struggle for students is it's hard to get all those repetitions in. And every level of school you move up, there's more material, it seems like, in less time. And so the number of repetitions you're able to get done go down. And so you have to really start understanding what's high yield and what's low yield. And Idris kind of mentioned this of saying, okay, I'm going through the book. I keep seeing that reappear. It's reappearing. It's reappearing. That must be high yield. And so one of the skills that I teach my students and that you guys need to learn how to do is separate high yield from low yield. You have to be able to break a textbook down, break a lecture down, break a course down, right? We do course conceptualization to break a course down and say, okay, listen, yes, if I had infinity time, I can memorize everything, but I don't have that time. So what's going to be the highest yield? What is testable? And that's a key question I want you guys to ask yourself if you guys are studying, because a lot of things are there, but are they testable? So ask yourself that. How would they test this? In what way? And if it's not testable, then don't worry about it. Push it aside, because that's what you have to do to focus in and then get those repetitions in with the things that matter, because the more you repetize, and this active repetitions, these active recalls, makes a huge difference for you guys.
I would never recommend anyone to remember everything. I mean, as you say, break it down, remember images that are easy to recall and that you probably would get as a question later. You realize the details you need to let the brain fill out yourself. I mean, the whole sentences that you write, but it's the key words, the key meanings that you need to memorize. And that is a training on its own to be good at selecting, because when you are
100%.
good at selecting, it actually means that you're good at moving away informations that are not that are your low yield. And that can be feel very hard in the beginning, especially new students that is write down everything. No, take it easy, slow down, try to pick information, and you will not lose anything, because at the end of the day, you have memorized the most important key parts, and that will give you the whole image.
Yeah. And just a couple key steps if you guys want to start working on that skill, because that is truly, and we talk about this all the time in study coaching, is like the hardest thing is learning to make things sticky, is learning
Yeah.
to take and make your images, to make your memory palaces. It's those techniques, those strategies of getting really good at that and really facile. And so for my students, I teach my material matching. So for you guys, it's a lot to it, but in a nutshell, a couple short things you guys can do. Write this down, okay? When you guys are either reading or you're learning from a lecture, whatever it is, I want you guys to practice active perception. And the way I describe this is, if you're reading, I'm literally trying to look through the book. My brain is entirely focused on this material. And I say an excited brain, right, is an energized, is an engaged brain. And so I want to tell myself, yeah, I got to learn this. This matters. This is important. And I force myself to focus in. And so we're having active perception where we're saying, no, bring this information in. Don't filter it out. Bring it all in. And then once we bring it in, I want you guys to actively analyze what came in. So ask yourself, what did I read? What did I just hear? How did that change what I knew before? How is this, right, refine that? How is this relatable to something else I knew before? How does this mean something to me? And we walk through and we analyze and we break it down. And then we actively anchor it in our mind. So we're taking something that is not sciencey, for example, if it's a science class, and we're going to anchor to something that is a playground, that is a stool at our house, whatever. We're going to anchor it in our mind to something that we know. And so if we can walk through, as a kind of rough overview, if you guys can kind of try to walk through those steps, it'll help you guys start to make those wheels churn towards breaking these things down and thinking about it those ways. So I want you guys to have that as you go away, because I think, like you said, you're exactly right. The hard part is we can say all this stuff, but the hard part is, okay, well, now how do I do it? But practice is how you guys get it done. It's going to take some time. It's going to be some difficult struggles. It will be difficult, but we just practice, and we don't get upset, right? Were you a memory champion day one?
No, of course not.
Absolutely not, right? Right? You probably threw several decks of cards against the wall. Several decks of cards went against the wall. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Let's see. Again, we are here, guys, with Idriz Zogaj. We are live action right now, talking all things memory and learning. Caddy asks, we're not going to do that one. So I guess we could talk about reading, I guess, but reading's kind of off topic for today. But with reading, one of the problems that people have with reading is something that Idriz mentioned earlier. It's the same thing when you're talking to people or you listen to a professor. The reason people struggle with reading and a test like the MCAT or the CARS passages is that we're used to reading. We read like kids, right? Idriz works with kids. You got to get them out of bad kiddie habits, which is we read word to word to word to word to word. And now we have all these separate words to think about. And what you want to get in the habit of doing is reading in terms of concepts, in terms of ideas. And if you can do that, thoughts, it cuts down on the number of things you have to think about, and it helps you organize and orient yourself. So if you are a slow reader, if you are an English as second language learner, right, and you're trying to learn a separate language, and I guess I kind of tried to learn Spanish in high school, but not really. I've really struggled with that. So just any advice for people trying to learn a different language or learn to perform at a high level in a different language, like it's not their native language?
Well, I mean, when you learn a new language, it's important to start thinking in that language, to start maybe you change your phone to that language. You read easy textbooks, you watch a movie, you listen to radio with that language. You start feeling that you are part of that language, because that gives you a concept that it puts everything in a perspective. I want to listen, I want to understand. It's interesting. I like this. And the more of that you can do, the easier it will be for you to get it. And also, of course, you can memorize words. I mean, people often say that if you know 1,500 words from any language, then you can keep up with the conversation. And this is a part where memory athletes stick out, because we can memorize 1,500 words in a couple of days in any language. And I remember a friend of mine, when we went to China for competitions, and he said, "Yeah, I just memorized 2,000 words because it's easier than always having to pull out Google Translate." So,
I love that.
Because I asked
2,000
him,
words.
when did
That's
you learn
easier than
Chinese?
Google
Well,
Translate.
I just did it. So we stick out there, but when you have words, when you have a couple of hundreds or 200 words, then you can start to understand meanings, conversations, etc. A very good way, of course, is going to a place where people speak the language. It could be difficult. I mean, in the times we've had now, it's been even more difficult. But of course, if you go to a Spanish-speaking country, and if you stay with Spanish people and you go out and do your grocery shopping, go around, talk with people, etc., you will learn faster. And don't be afraid to speak a language. Don't be afraid to phrase yourself incorrect, etc. You will, it's practice, and then you will see that you will get better and better at it. That is a very important part. Many people learn a language and they're very afraid of using it. And then at the end of the day, what's the point?
Yeah, and it's the same thing with your classes, guys. When you guys are learning subjects, it's essentially like learning a new language. You're learning a language for that subject. So don't be afraid to talk about that material, to use that material, try to use those words you're learning. Otherwise, right, you're not going to get a hold of it. Okay.
Yep.
So Valencia asks, and this is one of my favorite topics ever, is to talk about sleep. But how important, Idris, is sleep and rest periods to memory?
Extremely important. I often tell people, especially students, go to bed in time and sleep and wake up in the morning and do a repetition rather than staying up all night. I mean, I'm up now, it's the middle of the night of Sweden, but it's because we're doing this interview and we have a
Say
different time
thank you,
zone.
guys. Say thank you.
But
He's here
I
in the
would
middle of the
never
night with you
recommend
guys.
this to anyone to sit up this late. I've only done it once, stayed up 24 hours for a test. I passed the test, but I was like dizzy for 2 days. It's better to sleep because what happens when you sleep is that you reconsolidate your memories. I mean, a lot of students can say that, oh, I had this weird math dream, I was running around, etc. What happens in their brain when they sleep is that the brain finds places to put information that you've learned during the day. And if you have put something stronger into memory, like using the memory techniques, if you have repeated something a couple of times, the brain will know this is important, this you should remember. And that happens when you sleep. You can never learn something fluently without letting it some time pass. Why is that? Because what happens is that when you learn, let's say you learn a new language, you will see activity all over the brain when you learn it the first time. But when you speak it fluently, you will see activity on only one part of the brain, a smaller part. Why? Because the brain has learned it and selected a spot where to put it. But the general learning, when it's everywhere in the brain, when you try to catch it, that's a part where most of that information will go away. But when you sleep, the brain will take some parts of it and consolidate it into your memory. So sleep is very, very important. You will also increase your ability to make mistakes if you're tired. And I use this a lot with a deck of cards, for example. If I have a stress period, worked a lot, etc., then I can test myself. I memorize a deck of cards. It should take 2-3 minutes. If it takes 5 minutes, or even if I can't do it, then I know that, okay, now I need to do something. And it's usually just to rest. I need to sleep my hours. I need to lower down the stress until I can go back and memorize the deck in the same time as I usually do. Then I know I'm sort of back. But most people don't do this, and they don't, especially don't check themselves. A tricky thing with the brain is that you, even when you're tired, even when you're not functioning well, you still are functioning, and that can fool yourself to think that, yeah, I can stay up and I can study, etc., etc., until it's too late, and like you run into the wall and you just like get burned out.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important to keep track of yourself and to sleep, to rest.
Guys, sleep matters. You heard
Yeah.
it here. Okay? I know I say it to you all the time, but listen to him. He's telling you sleep matters. It matters so, so much. And I want to re-highlight some of the things he said there because he talked about how the brain is doing this consolidation at night. The brain is organizing, right? Organizing at night. We need that, right? We need that time in between the material, right? To recover, to bring all these things back. And I love how you said, this is so important, right? We can't know where we are. It's easy to fool ourselves. We love to lie to ourselves. Oh, I could do that in 5 minutes. It's going to take a little longer than that, right? Or, oh, I'm fine. This lack of sleep doesn't affect me. I can stay up all night. We fool ourselves. We like to lie to ourselves. And so what we need, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie Inception. You guys have ever seen Inception? Have you seen Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yep.
It was a long time ago. Some of you guys were not even
Yeah.
born probably when that movie came out. I don't know. But I think about this because in the movie, right, you're in a dream within a dream within a dream, and you're trying to fool people inside your dreams. But he has a little thing that tells him, like a token or whatever, that tells him, okay, this is real or this is not. And so I loved how you said, hey, am I tired? Well, we lie to ourselves. Well, I'm not tired. I'm not whatever. You have a concrete measurement tool to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know when my brain is ready to focus, ready to work, and not tired, I can do this deck of cards in 2 to 3 minutes. So if it's taking me 5 minutes, I may need to take a break. And for all of you guys, I encourage you to have some sort of system like that. And for me, I know how long it should take me. So whenever I start, whenever I start a subject, so it's a biology class or a chemistry class or a physics class, I measure how long it takes me to roughly read 10 pages. And the reason that's important is because then I can take those 10 pages And we don't just do one page, but we do 10 pages because it gives you a good sample size. I divide that by 10. That's how long it should take me to read one page. So now I can say, okay, man, I'm feeling tired, but I think I can power through. Well, wait a minute. Let's see. And I can now go and read one page and say, okay, that took me way too long. I know I'm not operating on all cylinders. So I need to step back. So I created an objective measure, and I love that. Thank you for saying that. That objective measure to test yourself, a reality check. A reality check to say, no, stop lying, stop fooling yourself. You're in trouble. And you mentioned, right, staying up all night and then being out 2 days later. Please, guys, I call it like we have success loops, we have success patterns, and then we have failure loops. And we were talking about this in study coaching because I was getting on Isabella. I was yelling at Isabella, one of my students, Isabella, because she's in this habit loop. She just joined us, but she's in this habit loop of I don't study, I put things off, I procrastinate, I'm overwhelmed, and then I'm going to study all day, 12 hours, get it done. And then she's like, oh, I got it done. I got a good grade. And it reinforces that negative behavior. She's lying to herself, telling herself she's winning when she's actually losing. And for all of you guys, reality check, reality check, reality check. Because a lot of you guys are in bad habits, bad loops. You're in negative self-talk, telling yourself that you don't have a good brain, all these kind of things. You got to check yourself and say, what's real and what's just my perception of things? So important. Brent asks, what is, let's see, I just saw it. Based on your research and training, what have you found to be the best memory technique? Is it different for each event in competition?
Well, the basic for everything is to make fun stories about the information we want to remember. So, I mean, that would if I could boil it down to something, it's like let the brain have fun. And if the brain have fun, you will remember it easier. So that's what it boils down to. So everything I recall, whether it's words, whether it's cars, whether it's names, whether it's images or whatever, it always boils down to that I try to have fun. I try to enjoy myself doing it. And then it will be easier to recall. And the part of seeing images, if you can see it in front of you, your brain understands it. And if the brain understands it, then it's so much easier to remember it and recall it later.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to put Joylene's comment up here. And I'm going to put Isabella's comment up here just so Idris can maybe see it because I don't think he can see the chat box. But I appreciate all you guys for showing up with this live action. Thank you, Idris, for being here with us and giving us this valuable content. I just want everybody to see this. Joylene says, thank you so much for sharing this information. Isabel says, thank you. This is valuable. The students appreciate it. This is what this show's about, guys. This is a Study Doc show, and we're here live every single Tuesday bringing you guys stuff of value, of substance to help you in your journey. And I think there's a good question here. Another one from Brant, but I think it's a good question to start wrapping things up on is what are some of the best books, training, website tools for memory techniques? I think it's a good question to end on because, right, as a memory expert, Idris has written multiple books, created multiple apps for you guys. So I'd love for you to share with us some of the tools that you've created, some of the tools you've developed, and then also maybe some other tools and techniques that students can use.
Yeah, I have a course. It's on Udemy for those people who use that. That has most of the concept that we talked about here, or all of it. There also I talk about some of the tools I have, and one of the tools I have is Remente, Remente.com. It's an app that helps you set goals and then reach those goals, how to break it down, etc. And in there we have courses on if you have trouble sleeping, we can help you with that. If you have trouble memorizing, then you can go my course. It's a holistic perspective. It's like a coach in your pocket. The whole holistic perspective that you can keep with you. And I joined Remente. I'm a co-founder, but when I was asked to join it, I like this part that, I mean, only memorizing just for memorizing, what's the point? But if you use the memorizing for your school or for your work or for something, then it's much better. And with Remente, we have this holistic picture. It's like your everyday life. What am I going to do to be better at school? What am I going to do to focus at work? What am I going to do better to stay with my family? I mean, we all have limited time. How do I focus on that, etc. So it takes on all parts of your life. And of course, memory is a very big and important part of that. I've also made an app called memotopia.com, where you do memory training for fun. Work with images, you see them in different ways, and you can train, you can challenge friends, etc. And that's you can use that for your reality check. Let's say you play you play have a flash game where you see images flash, and the highest level is like 25 images. It's quite hard. You see the images, you put them in a journey, etc. And on a normal day, you can recall them. But after like a study period where you've been up for too much, etc., and you see, ooh, now it's hard. Now I don't even make it, which can happen to me as well. Then you know that you need to rest and you need to reset yourself until you can do it again.
Nice. So did you guys get those? I put the link up there in the box for you guys for mente.com. And after this session, I'm going to make sure I already have Idris's website address in the description, but I'm going to add some more links to these guys for you guys to have resources, because even though we've been here for an hour and 11 minutes, bringing it in the middle of the night in Sweden,
Yeah.
it doesn't stop here. Like his journey didn't end after university. Your journey doesn't end here, guys. This is the start, right? I'm sure we could talk about this for days. So go beyond this. Go to his course, right? Go to his website. Go to these things. Use these apps. Train yourself. Don't just think, oh, I listened to him, and now my brain's amazing. I'm going to go and be. Take the next step, guys. Take the next level. Go to a website. Go to my website. Go to his website. Better yourselves. And that's what I think. I don't know for you. I feel like getting good at something, getting skilled at something is addictive. And for you,
Yeah.
right, with memory, this journey you've been on, I'm sure early on, right, everything is hard when we start, but I just want to, as we end here, I want you guys to understand that greatness is amazing because people recognize your greatness. That's cool, whatever. But greatness is great because you're great. And when you feel good about what you're doing, you feel the fact that not only that am I good at it now, I can get better. And I can get better. I can get better. That quest to be your best is it's so rich. It's so amazing. It makes life incredible. Can you kind of talk about how you've strived to better yourself and how it's added to your life and I don't know, the joy of being great, of being incredible?
Well, what happens when I learn the memory technique is that, as you say, you want to learn more and you want to learn different things. I've tried, for example, I don't know anything about music. Can I use the memory techniques to learn song, to learn to play the piano? I found out that I could. Could I use the memory techniques to learn how to solve Rubik's Cube? And I could. Could I learn memory techniques to learn a new language? I tried it, yes, and I could. So it has opened up different perspectives for me to strive to learn more things. Can I memorize everyone's name at this meeting? Yes. Can I memorize these numbers? Yes. Can I be on a talent show because I can? Yes, I can. And trying new things is always a good way of learning. A very easy way to train your brain, for example, is to take a different path home from school, or to do something different, or to go to a different country, because your brain learns. Or you can learn yourself, select a new language, select, etc. And with the memory, when knowing that I can learn anything, it has really opened up for me to try different things and not being afraid of trying new things, and always
Oh, I love
realize
that.
that something sticks. And it's very nice to always feel like you're developing, always feel like you're learning, etc. It's a very nice feeling.
I love that. You don't have to be afraid, y'all. Some of y'all live in fear of trying new things. I always call it exposing kind of your soft underbelly. Oh, I'm not good at that. I have to stay where I'm good. But when you recognize that you can build proficiency, you can build skill, you recognize I don't care how dumb I look starting something, trying to memorize the piano, but if I just start it, I'll be able to get there. I can do those things. And I love that you said not to be afraid of anything. And it opens up this whole world of avenues and perspectives that you never even think about. But then once you start getting this proficiency, you start feeling confident in yourself. It's incredible. It's incredibly addictive. So, Idris, I'm not gonna hold you up all night. I know it's the middle of the gosh darn night. It's like 8 hour difference I think between Pacific time. It's probably what, like 2 in the
Nine
morning, three,
hours.
9. It's 3 in the
Yeah,
morning. Oh
it's
my
getting to three.
gosh,
Yeah,
3 in the morning right
I get
now,
I
guys.
I gotta get to work soon. It's
Okay,
gonna be the second 24 hour.
in your
Time.
life. We've
Yeah,
just wrecked
exactly.
his entire week, guys. You better say thank you right now. You better like this video. We are live action. He committed to coming here in the middle of his nighttime to help you guys get better. Please be appreciative of that. I'm very appreciative of it, and it was an awesome hour and 50. That's why I couldn't even let you go in an hour. I had to get an hour and 15 with you because it was awesome and it was incredible.
Thanks, yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on with us and being here with us here today. I appreciate it so much. Please go get some sleep right now, this moment.
I will.
The rest of you guys,
you
no
very
sleep
much.
for you guys. Go get to work. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. And good night and good day.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Everyone, give it up for Idriz. It was awesome tonight, guys. So awesome. Again, this is the Study Doc Show. Stuff of substance and of value. If you want to get better, if you want to develop that competency that Idriz was talking about, that greatness inside you guys, come hang out with us every week and just learn. Be open to learning new things and new angles from people who have been there, who have walked the path you want to walk, and who are where you want to be, guys. So thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back next Tuesday with another awesome guest. And take the time, guys, like I said, in the comment box, and thank Idriz for being here in the middle of his night and giving his time and giving you guys real advice. I appreciate it so much that he was here with us tonight. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Every Tuesday, we're live action. Catch us live. Catch us on the YouTube channel. Catch us on social media. Catch us on the podcast. Wherever you're going to catch us, but catch us and get better, guys. So everyone, have an awesome evening. I'll see you guys next time. That's it for another episode of the Study Doc Show. Show your love by smashing the like button and commenting in the box below. Today is the day, guys. No more excuses, no more complaining. You're going to take your future into your own hands. You're going to dominate. You're going to be successful. I challenge you. What are you going to do today to make your life better? Get to my website, thestudydoc.com. Grab a free ebook, sign up for a free webinar, and if you're really ready to transform, enroll in one of my life-changing courses or coaching programs. You have greatness inside you. Let me show you how to unlock it so you can dominate and make your dreams a reality. No excuses, just dominate.